Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Sue DeCaro, here with my good friend and colleague, Erin Taylor. And Erin and I are co-founders of a company called Building Connected Communities. We're delighted today to be talking about Suzi Lula and the work that she has done. Suzi is a much sought-after spiritual counselor, teacher, and inspirational speaker who is an expert in the field of human transformation. She has been in a private practice for over 18 years, as well as having mentored some of the most successful ministers, coaches, and evolutionary teachers that are influencing our culture today. Suzi conducts workshops at spiritual centers and is an advocate for women. She is also a composer and an award-winning pianist who has provided the musical inspiration at events for speakers such as best-selling author Marianne Williamson, Neil Donald Walsh, John Bradshaw, and Paul Farini. Her own concerts are devotional in nature to healing to the heart. We're glad to be here with you, Suzi.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here with you too. Thank you so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure when we speak with you.
Ditto.
So I think I want to dive right in with talking about mothers and the challenges that mothers are facing today and how your work helps address that issue for moms.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. And I definitely appreciate the question because in working with women all day long, every day, certainly mothers are challenged today. So I first want to say that, I have a new book coming out. It's called The Motherhood Evolution: How Thriving Mothers Raise Thriving Children. And what I've learned about the challenges that we mothers, because I'm a mother, I have a 14-year-old son, and some of the challenges that we mothers go through, for me, moms are doing, the most important work on the planet. We have the first imprint on the next generation on our planet. And so this is important work, and it calls for so much from within us. And the moms that I work with, the moms that I know, we're truly trying to be the best moms we can be. But what I find is at the heart of the challenge is that we're trying to do this important work most often from an empty tank. And so I find that it's literally, physically impossible to be caring for another individual who has high needs from an empty tank. And this takes us into a conversation that mothers have bought into this, what culture tells us, that caring for ourselves is selfish. And so, therefore, what happens is we have, as mothers, as women, this deep spiritual connection with our children. Ask any mom just looking into the eyes of her child, and there's a palpable spiritual connection. And what I find is that this connection inside of us is lost. It's severed. It's disconnected when we don't take care of our own spirit, when we get disconnected from our own spirit. And so that, to me, is the heart of the challenge that women mothers have today, is giving ourselves permission to care for ourselves, to know that it's not only not selfish, but it will actually benefit our children. It's the most beneficial thing that we can do to raise the next generation who would be thriving and healthy.
That's fabulous. It sounds like that also in your work, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a great opportunity to help mothers see that modeling that for their children too is of utmost importance.
Precisely. I have a son, and one day, he's going to be in a relationship himself. So to see that it's really essential for him to stay connected to his own spirit and then partner with someone that we want that individual to know it's important to nourish their own spirit is the way that we're going to create the next generations,
Absolutely.
Oh, that is that's so profound. Just that concept of helping mothers to fill their own buckets, and that conversation about not being able to be the mom you want to be when your tank is empty. I'm thinking about all the mothers that we encounter at our workshops that we give and the clients that I've worked with. And so many moms today are depleted. They're stressed. They're pulled in 1,000 directions. They're trying to live up to these unrealistic expectations that society has set for all of us. And they're trying to conform to this fantasy that doesn't exist. And so I think the work that you're doing with moms is so vital and so good, and it's just going to transform the planet.
I so thank you for saying that, because I run into the same thing with the mothers that I work with, is that we have this amazing connection with these children, but we're going through our days feeling disconnected and exhausted and stressed and anxious. And one of the things that I love about what you guys are doing, and you mentioned, society tells us, and it is true, society tells us to do more and to take care of ourselves less, really, because, it's selfish. And so when you think about even your building conscious communities, connected communities, it's going to take the few mothers who are courageous enough. I always speak to mothers about this quality of courage, because if we are to care for ourselves, it's going to take the first few mothers who are willing to say, well, society might say that it's selfish, but I have my own intuition. I have my own inner wisdom. And I've never spoken to a mother who deep down knows that she is not going to be the mother her child needs her to be from an empty tank. We all know that this is accurate, And it's going to take a few of us, the cliche, the Margaret Mead quote about, never think that a small group of people cannot change this planet, because indeed these are the ones that are only, that's how it happens. And so even just the three of us speaking together, and whomever will be touched here, to give yourself permission to have the courage to be the first mom in your own individual group to say, you know what? I take care of myself. I meditate. I fill up my tank. I do what I need to do to be the mother that my child needs to be. And actually, I feel better and my children feel better. Then every other mother is going to want what that mother has, because it's very attractive. When you see someone who's thriving and healthy and cares for themselves, it's attractive. You want it. I want it,
Yeah, the results speak volumes for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And people want to jump on board.
Yeah.
Suzi, I know you have a unique approach that has led you to be featured on the Today Show with Michael Beckwith. Can you tell us a little bit about that unique approach?
Well, I think what it comes down to for me was that I recognized when I had my son that taking care of myself, self-care, meditation, which is at the heart of self-care, became non-negotiable for me. And what is unique about what I do is that, I guess I'll just say to first of all, is the word first. It's taking care of myself first, and to have the courage and to have the audacity, really, to say that I'm going to take care of myself first, because it does sound so selfish. Nobody wants to be selfish. Nobody wants to be seen as narcissistic. What I found is that when we don't take care of ourselves first, it's actually the most narcissistic thing, because then when we're depleted, when we're exhausted, I need only walk into a room, not even say a word, and my depleted energy is loud. It's louder. I don't even need to say a word. My son can feel that energy. And so then everything is revolving around me. So the very thing that I'm seeking, not to have, it's revolving around me anyway. And so when you read a financial book, any financial book will tell you, if you want to acquire wealth, you need to pay yourself first. This is proven. It is proven that people say, oh, I'm going to pay myself at the end of the month. It won't happen. But
Mm-hmm.
when you pay yourself first, you always have money left over for food. It is proven. So this is the same with self-care. We have to have the courage to say, I'm going to take care of myself first, my spiritual practice, my spiritual life. I am a spiritual being first and foremost.
Mm.
And my spiritual practice, this spiritual being, I must care for it first and foremost. So I think, you know, one of the things, there's a couple of other things, but I think the most important thing that makes my program unique is that you have to prove out to yourself that not only is this not going to, you know, hurt my children, but it's the best thing that I can do for my children.
Beautiful. Love it. You know, it's funny when I talk about self-care, I talk about it in reference to a car. You know, we're driving our children to, you know, this activity or that activity, and the tank is empty. No one gets where they want to go. And it's, you know, it's such a simplistic way, but for me, you know, it works. But I do like the way you look at, you know, it from a business standpoint in terms of paying yourself and really how big that courage is. I think many people need to hear that it does take courage. And
I think courage is the operative word. You know, I almost named my book Permission to Thrive, because I think that women are looking for that permission, because as Erin had said earlier, society very clearly tells us the more we do, the more accolades we get, the more, you know, accomplishments, you know, we have, or our kids have, or the better schools or whatnot. We're being fed this, you know, litany of things that we need to check off to be a good mom, and it's producing stress and anxiety. And so I believe permission and courage are the qualities that women are longing and yearning for right now. The courage to go against this onslaught of media and culture and society and say, you know, well, I have the courage to trust my own intuition, and your example about a car, you know, there's also the example, the obvious one about being on a plane, and no one thinks, oh, I'm going to put on my own oxygen mask first and then selfishly sit back. And no one thinks putting on your own oxygen mask first is selfish.
right, right.
We know it's essential, and yet in life, you know, we treat it as if it's, and so this is I can't find the word, but it's insulting is the word. It's insulting to my intelligence as a woman and as a mother to tell me that taking care of myself is selfish. And I will not buy into that insult. And not only that, I invite anyone and everyone listening to join us. You know, do not be insulted by this onslaught of society. We right here, we all have an intuition that tells us that we will, I call it, well, I love your term, connected communities. I love that term. I just love it. I see connected communities, I see it as a spiral. So if I'm taking care of my spirit, then I overflow. And when I overflow, it overflows onto my spouse, onto my children. And that spirals out. And then it spirals out into my friendships. It spirals out into my relationships, my community. And this, to me, is how we build, you know, connected communities. I'm connected inside of myself. Just even talking to you all, I'm so inspired. I want to invite everyone in. Like, join us, everyone. Join us. This is a great thing, you know. Join this connected community.
Yeah. Well, and take the first step. Be courageous and give yourself permission and take the first step. And, you know, you painted a beautiful picture of a web. You know, it's a web that just keeps on growing. And
yes, exactly.
Fabulous.
I found this other connection between self-care and abundance, strangely enough, and that when I take care of myself, I feel good. And when we feel good, that is a feeling of worthiness and value.
Mm-hmm.
So a person who values themselves cares for themselves, and vice versa. A person that begins to care for themselves starts sending a message to their core self: I matter. I'm valuable. I'm important enough to be cared for. And when we have that good feeling that comes from being cared for and caring for ourselves, that good feeling is expansive. It's spacious. It's the opposite of stress and constriction and exhaustion and disconnection. That's constrictive energy. The other is expansive and spacious and open. And that open feeling is the feeling of abundance, because we're open, and then we become part of the circulation, you know? And so it was an unexpected result of doing this work and research that I've done about assisting women to start taking care of themselves, that the abundance in their life tremendously, dramatically, and exponentially increased.
It's fabulous.
I love that.
Yeah.
It might be a good moment to introduce these lovely, I hope you can see them, Suzi's music. And to let you know that this is the one that is playing in the background, Reflections, and Suzi Lula solo piano. I hope you don't mind me sharing this here. But that is the background music that you hear. And as you were talking about abundance and value and really filling our tanks, that is one of my methods to fill my tank, is when I feel somewhat depleted or a little bit of stress coming on, I immediately turn on the CD in the background, which automatically soothes my body, relaxes me internally, and provides me with energy, fuel, abundance, value, just all those gifts that we want for ourselves. So you just described it perfectly, what I feel when I listen to your music. So it's always right behind me as I work at my desk. So thank you for these wonderful CDs.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate hearing that. I feel so fortunate. You know, it's a way that I fill my own tank too, is sitting down and playing the piano. And often I just sit at my piano and meditate quietly and not even play, but I just am quiet, and then I wait for the music to come out. And that's how most of those pieces have been written, actually, was from the silence. Wow. Sitting in the filling of my tank and just inviting, music to come forward, and it would just come through. So thank you. May it soothe many, many, many people. May it find many people who need and could use to be soothed.
They need to take the courage to take the first step, and I'm sure you'll share where they can find your music.
Absolutely.
Take that first step to soothe themselves.
Yes.
But before we get there, one thing that I'm curious about, I know that you do very important work as a spiritual counselor, and you've kind of mentioned the spirit of a mom and our thriving selves and our thriving spirits and the spirit of our children, and I kind of can understand, but for our viewers, I wonder if you could explain how your work as a spiritual counselor kind of blends in with your work with mothers.
Beautiful. For me, it starts when you think of meeting your child for the first time, whether you biologically gave birth to that child or whether you adopted a child and met that child. I work with so many mothers who adopted, and there's something in the process, be it pregnancy or the process of the two beings coming together, that I haven't had anyone describe as pretty much less than miraculous. There's just something that is beyond our world that is happening to allow two beings to come together, in this way. And so when I work with individuals, I'm working much the same way that a therapist would work, in the sense that we're working on their physical life, home, career, finance. We're working on the mental level and the emotional level with emotional triggers and and completing any unresolved emotional material or baggage from our past. And we're also working on the spiritual level, that the context in which I work, there's this brilliant Albert Einstein quote that says we can't solve the problem at the level of consciousness that created the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So in my work, I cannot look at an individual's life at the level of life that they're living. We must go up to the mountaintop, so to speak. We must rise up in consciousness, so to speak. And the context, it's like having a picture in a picture frame. The picture is the person's life, but the picture frame is the context. And the context for me, you can call it a spiritual one, you can call it a universal present, you can call it my highest self, anything that would let us know that I of myself in this moment am doing nothing to breathe my breath or beat my heartbeat. There's something that's gifting me life, that's beating my heartbeat right now. I don't have to, chug it on up. It's beating. So this is what I'm speaking of, and this is, for me, what people are yearning and longing for. Again, in our culture, we usually speak to the emotional level, the mental level, and certainly the physical level of car and house and money and, white picket fence. Until and unless we address this larger context of our heart, our being, when you go to pass on, you're going to look back, and what's going to be important is the quality of your life. And so when I speak of spirit, I'm speaking of the quality of our life. I
think that's beautiful, and so many people seem detached from their spirit, the quality of their life, and again goes back to that doing and doing and doing and never really being and knowing who we are if we don't give ourselves that opportunity to be with ourselves. And when you're on that hamster wheel going, how can you possibly connect with yourself? So the work that you're doing is so vital in this world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's like our doing tasks are not going to change. I'm still going to do the laundry, make the dinner, take my son where he needs to go. But when I take care of myself, the me that I bring to the doing tasks is a different me. Right. I always say same son, different mother. Because I'm seeking to show up to those tasks differently. And that is what this connecting to our spirit, nourishing our spirit. And I think that what you're saying is so accurate, that many, many, many mothers, women, individuals are disconnected, but I haven't met one that isn't searching and longing and seeking, because I feel like our soul is never really going to rest. And we are here to be connected through this journey, and there's an unrest that happens until we make that connection. And I think that that's why so many people are searching and yearning right now and longing right now. And that's a good thing. That longing is good, because it's going to lead us to the individuals that can assist us to make this interconnection.
Courage again.
Yes.
Courage to find the source that's going to help them connect.
Exactly.
And I just love that word unrest. I think that hits the nail on the head. That really symbolizes the people that I have come across who are, something's just not quite right. They don't know. They know it should be different, but they don't know how to go about it, or they're not really sure, but they know this is not the way it should be. And it is kind of like a soul level unrest.
Yes.
That is seeking to connect to something.
Yes. It reminds me of the Thoreau quote, living lives of quiet desperation. It's just what you're saying. I'm knowing something isn't right here. There's unrest here. And the thing that I most want to share goes back to what Sue was sharing, that how music fills you. Because what I want to say is that this unrest that we're experiencing, it can be soothed, it can be nourished, it can be fed. There's this thirst and hunger that can be fed, and it doesn't need to be as big of a deal as we think it needs to be. Mm-hmm. It can, and it best happens through the simplest of ways. When you're, making dinner, taking the time to put on a piece of music when you're making dinner. We can find very simple ways. It doesn't have to be a 3-hour process every day, because this is, again, what I hear from mothers and women every day is, I want to take care of myself, but I don't have time. Right? So first of all, we have to recognize whenever we hear ourselves saying, I don't have enough time, we have to recognize I am operating in a paradigm of lack. Because I just heard myself say, I don't have enough. And this is what, again, going back to Erin, this is what culture and society feeds us. Society wants us to live in a culture of lack. So that we need, so that we buy.
Yeah.
So again, this is an insult to women's intelligence, right?
For sure.
Right? So what happens is, when I find small ways to feed my spirit, the moment that Sue, I'll speak for you, turns on a beautiful piece of music, you forget about time for that moment. You are operating outside of finite time. And then you are filled up in a way, you can be filled up in 3 minutes in a way that you wouldn't have been filled up in an hour. If you really find something that feeds you, for those 3 minutes, for those 5 minutes, you're operating outside of linear time. So then when you come back into your work, perhaps you get twice as much done in half the amount of time, because you have come to your work differently.
Yes.
Right? So are you going from lack to abundance.
You must see this happening, Suzi.
You're my soul sister. Of course I am.
Absolutely. And you're so right on. I mean, I'm a definite example of that. And, I think anybody that connects with music or feels they could connect with music, this is just so peaceful internally and externally. So I'm loving it. You're with me every day.
Thank you. Thank you. Makes my heart sing. Makes me very happy. Thank you.
Well, before we wrap up our amazing conversation that could literally go on for hours, because we could chat with you for hours, Suzi, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you for the light that you shine in our world. You bring... I've seen you interacting with people. I've had many conversations with you, and you just kind of brighten up any room that you walk into. And whenever I talk to you, I feel like my heart is a little bit lighter and a little bit more joyful. And so to go about your days, every day, waking up, spreading joy and light in the world is such a gift to the world that you are and that you bring. So I want to thank you for that, because it's vital to the world.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It kind of goes back to that courage. What my girlfriend is the first person that prompted me to write this book, The Motherhood Evolution, 10 years ago, easily, because I was having a conversation with her, and I said, when my son was young, I said, my husband and I have this agreement. I put myself first, our marriage second, and our son third. And by doing that, I'm trusting that ultimately he will be first, because I've taken care of myself first. He's growing into a home in a good atmosphere, creating this atmosphere, and then he will rise up, right? And so my girlfriend said, "Oh my God, you've got to write a book." And it's taken me probably all of this time to have the courage to say that out loud, because what you're talking about, this light that you see, or this whatever it is that you see, it really just comes from not just, it comes from every single morning moving through the same thing that every other mom moves through, you know, like this morning, am I really going to go to the gym before I do this interview because my son's off for, you know, summer break and my husband was gone. So we are all challenged. We have the same situations and circumstances in our own little world. And it's like, yeah, I needed that courage this morning that said, you bet, you know, I am. And I'm so glad I did, you know, but just as easily I could have said, no, you know. So I appreciate what you're saying. And I just want to say to everyone, you know, it takes courage, and yet the payoff is exponential. The payoff will change your life forever.
Absolutely.
So, Suzi, speaking of your books and hearing your music in the background, where can people find you, connect with you, follow you, ask you questions, purchase your music and your books?
Beautiful. So as long as you know how to spell Suzi Lula, my website is SUZILULA, so SuziLula.com. And you can find me on Facebook, Suzi Lula. And I love all the questions. You can email me, Suzi@SuziLula.com. I love all of the interaction and the connection. So please, you know, you can order my book, and I do a Facebook Live on Monday mornings. Love to have you join us there, where you guys often are, and we all ask questions and I answer questions. It's a wonderful community and very similar to what you guys are doing. I feel like, you know, I have this saying that collaboration is the new competition. So competition, you know, is ancient, and so this collaboration, we all meet up on Monday mornings, and you know, different ways in different places. So please look for me, find me.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Suzi.
Thank you guys
for your time. We loved it.
Oh, thank you guys. Here's to many, many, many more, and may this go out and find every mom who needs it, every woman who needs it.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Blessings, you guys. Much love.